Hi there. I had to laugh a little bit because my last video was about lying, and then there was this video about a guy, a Fox News reporter, that tried to report, and there was a guy in the background shouting Fox lies, very loud. And it actually was discussed on Young Turks, and I guess it got quite some press. It's good. It's one of my predictions that would happen, that there would be a backlash against the mass media. And it's really the first thing you really need to address is the lies. You have to make it illegal for people to lie. If you do that, then of course it doesn't mean that suddenly everybody has to be 100% truthful. But if somebody tells an outright lie, then you can start a court case against him and make sure that he's disgraced publicly and basically has to stop talking in public. The media are out of bounds in that respect, which is crazy. It's just completely insane that you have people taking up your mental capacity during the day that have no responsibility whatsoever, that only pretend to have that in order to keep your attention. If it's once again, it's the Loenen with één oog. We have the how did you in the medieval period, how did you recognize the devil? Well, it's quite a perfect person with one defect somewhere. So with one eye or with a scar. If somebody lies one time, you know that he can lie another time. You just don't believe him anymore, and you don't take him, get him out of the leadership position. That's where they are right now. It's quite clear that many media figures are considered leadership, let's say, icons. Well, it's your choice. I think that there will be a hard backlash against the mass media that are incorrect and lying pretty soon, sooner than you think. I'm of course also following the situation in medicine. I have my own experience with union or knowledge of it. I know that in some cases they can be unreasonable in their demands, and an example is truck drivers in a container terminal that demand $150,000 per year to drive their truck around the container terminal, which of course they can only enforce because they keep out people that apply for these jobs. So the terminal cannot find other truck drivers, and they strike every now and then, which then of course causes mayhem in unimaginable ways. If you don't know shipping, you probably doesn't really register, but it's like it's a conveyor belt. If you put your hand on it with cookies and stuff on it, if you put your hand or you block it, then it becomes a really huge mess all down the belt. But in the case that this Walker takes as an example, the union strike of the air traffic controllers that was beaten down by Ronald Reagan, it's completely incorrect, because these air traffic controllers are essential for the functioning of the airport, and it's a skill. You cannot replace them. You just cannot pick somebody off the street to be an air traffic controller. It doesn't work. So, tough shit. In my opinion, these guys deserve a lot of money, because without them you don't have an airport. And you can say, well, but we can educate more. Well, okay, but if you try, you find that that doesn't really work, because people don't expect to succeed, and there might not be enough jobs as air traffic controller. So you're basically stuck, and that's a hard life. But you have an airport, and you make millions after all. So just do it, and don't beat down that union strike. In general, it's a complete mistake to take Ronald Reagan as a shining example for anything, but undeserved reward or something like that. Somebody that doesn't deserve to have his position. I read a little bit about him. He was he saved 77 lives as a beach guard, and I think he will destroy billions of lives, because he made that climate change was not really entering the political discussions at the beginning or the end of the 70s, at the beginning of the 80s, when it should have, when there should have been complete, when basically, in the end, when he made sure that climate change was not becoming an issue politically, he basically made the decision to destroy our ecosystem completely. because at that time the ppm rate, the concentration of carbon dioxide, was not yet a problem, and it was not going to cause runaway climate change. Right now it is. And there's 30 years between that. So if you want to make a list of the most genocidal maniacs in world history, you have to include Ronald Reagan, because he's on the top of the list. But that said, this Walker has the wrong attitude about labor, and it's an understandable attitude. I think psychological, the way it works is that you run a company. He of course has the attitude of the people that pay him to be a politician, but that people, the industrialists, have a very simple mentality, very understandable. They compete with others. It's a fight all the time, and their whole world model becomes that competition, that fight, which is incorrect. Because if you have a baker in a town, he makes bread, that's what he does, and maybe he competes with another baker, so he makes very nice bread, very good pastries and all that stuff. But he doesn't fight with the rest of the town all the time. And he doesn't slave his, he doesn't have to fight with the people that work in the bakery. Actually, he has to do the opposite, to make sure that they create quality and that they're motivated. And maybe he doesn't need to do that because the work is nice. But it's not a war zone. Companies are not supposed to be war zones. The only reason why they are is that banks give credit to companies so they can compete against each other. And then they choose leaders to those companies and they support them, which are the most antisocial, maniacal, insane lunatics. Smart, but in a very narrow way. So Walker is wrong. He should not, say, push it to the limit. But he has, I think, an ambition to become the hero of the conservatives by succeeding in this case. So there's another trophy for him in the future. And I guess people don't often realize that, but that's how a lot of political careers work. And we can have examples with of course, Tony Blair working for Goldman Sachs, all the people that have, let's say, later careers in which they are richly rewarded in terms of a job. This Walker guy simply wants to be a conservative presidential candidate. He wants to have a nice myth to talk about, and the myth will be that he beat down this walkout in Wisconsin. And he beat down these unions and he got them. And it's very, I guess, it's not right to basically to allow this person to do this, because if you follow me, this guy is highly likely working based on an illusion of a future reward. But it's an illusion. Because the US is going to change, there's peak oil, there's all kinds of other problems. And there might not be a democracy or a system in which he can become president when he tries to, let's say, in 10 years or something, or 5 years or 20 years. So his career is an illusion. This guy is insane. If he imagines himself to be able to attain that high goal, he's not fit for leadership at the moment, I think. It's exactly the same as as I wrote a piece about Ray Kurzweil, who talks about climate change, but he knows nothing about it. But he has a story which says that computers get faster with Moore's law, every double the speed in 18 months, which they have done, but which they will not always do. Of course, there's a limit in the end, but it's of course. It's been sought to break that or to keep that law going all the time. Based on that simple idea that that's going to be the future, which he has, he talks about all kinds of topics that has nothing to do with it. He talks about climate change, but solar panels will become cheaper and cheaper, and it's going to double every year, and that's also happening with computers. Yes, okay. And any other problem that you propose to him, he will say, I actually read an article that he's going to set up some university where people are trying to address the problems of the world. And in the end, he reveals where this all comes from. He says, it comes from my family. They said there's always a solution. So you have to only look for it and then you'll find it. That's a belief. That's a religious thing. That's a thing that's irrational. And there's a funny thing about it, because anybody that is alive can look for a solution. And if there's not a solution and you die as a result, you don't hear any complaints of that person. So all the people of the Titanic, if they have all been called Ray Kurzweil, then they would be all dead, and the few that were alive would say, well, it's clear, I was on the ship and the thing started to sink, and then I clung on to a piece of wood, and lo and behold, I found a solution. You have to always look for the solution, because there always is one. Also to climate change. It's an insane person with some insane conceptions, which he doesn't recognize, that he's completely solipsistic in his or isolated in his worldview. He just wants to repeat the central theme of his beliefs, which is that if you look for solutions, you'll find them, and to any technical problem there's a solution, which is bullshit. It's not true. And the same goes, I think, for Walker. He wants something, to achieve something in the future by doing something right now, and these people there are being victimized by it, and people are talking about shooting with live rounds to get this done. And you're talking about somebody that's insane. Because a sane person would say, well, here's a public that's outraged. They wouldn't be outraged for nothing. They probably need something really bad. I'm their leader. Let's make sure that they get it. You don't have to give them everything, but at least, make sure that they can work in peace, because that's the best solution for the economy. Anyway, those are my thoughts. And it all starts with lies, because he's also talking, he was on this prank phone call, talking to somebody he thought was Mr. Koch. And he basically explained that he was inviting the democratic leaders to talk in the Capitol in session, so that he can then keep the session open even if they walk out, and pass the laws that they want to pass. But to the Democrats he was saying, well, come over, nothing's going to happen, we're just going to talk, we're not going to make it political, all that stuff. He's a liar. So top of the task list is shut down the lies. And thanks for listening.